So the Ornithopter is probably the single best thing you can get in the entire game. It's going to be the helicopter, essentially. It's going to double as a plane, and it is going to make the whole game so much easier when you get it. And for the biggest reason being that you can avoid sandworms entirely, and you're going to be able to just fly over all the annoying rocks and mountains and ridges, which is going to allow you to get from point A to B in record time. It goes quite quickly, and it is going to be also very crucial when it comes to the end game for both the traversal of the world map to visit the different cities, which you're going to need to do multiple times for different contracts and factions, and the most importantly, it is also going to be a necessity for traversing the end game of the deep desert, which is going to be a PvP mostly area. But without further ado, let's talk about how we can get this Ornithopter as quickly as possible and how you're going to get the different resources that you're going to need in order to get it. Now, the first thing you're going to need to do is probably going to have to build the buggy first. Now, if you already have a buggy or you just want to see how to get the helicopter itself, just fast forward to the part where we talk about the helicopter. But let's first talk about the Dune buggy. And the reason being is because the Dune buggy is going to be crucial, because the Dune buggy is going to allow you to farm resources much more efficiently, which is going to be needed for the Ornithopter. The Ornithopter is quite an expensive vehicle to make, and you're going to need a Dune buggy first. So for the Dune buggy, the most common resource you're going to need is steel ingots. Now, steel ingots are pretty simple to make. You can make steel ingots by combining two resources, and that is going to be with combining iron ingots as well as carbon ore. Now, you can find iron ingots, and this is going to be found either in eastern or western Vermeer's Gap. It's a big center part of the map. It's going to have like a reddish orange sand. It's hard to miss. And then if you're looking for the carbon ore, and this is going to be found in the northeast part of the map under Hagar Rift, as well as Jabal Ifrit al-Shaq. I'm hoping I pronounced that one correctly. It's going to be found all along this area, and they're going to be everywhere on the surface. Now, there is two elements to this area. That's going to be the surface area where you're going to be finding all the carbon ore, and then you're going to also see this big trench, this like underground cavern system, and there's going to be where you find another very important resource, and that is going to be erythite crystals. Now, these crystals are going to be also very much needed because you're going to need it to make cobalt paste, and cobalt paste is not only going to be very much needed for building the dune buggies, but it's also going to be very much needed for building pretty much everything else. It's a very common resource, so you're going to be able to find those in the caverns. Now, in the caverns itself, you're going to have to descend. There's like different layers to the caverns. There's going to be the top layer, then you can find these paths on the right which you can drive down, and that's going to take you down to various lower layers. You'll be able to find these in pretty much most of the layers in the bottom sections of the cave. They're these pretty big glowing pinkish crystals which you're going to be able to find and mine. Some of them are going to be in kind of like facility areas where you're going to see a lot of enemies, so you're going to clear them out if you want to harvest the most. Otherwise, you can avoid the enemies and just stick to the crystals that are going to show on the main paths. There will be a little bit less crystals this way, but they will be safer. You can get these from there, and you're going to need this to make cobalt paste. Cobalt paste you're going to be able to make in the chemical refinery station, and that's going to be needed for most of the parts for the buggy. Another very important resource which you're going to need not only for the buggy, but also for a lot of things in the game, and that is going to be advanced servox. You can find these at the Imperial testing facilities. You're going to find them all over the map. It's kind of got that icon with the blue satellite dish. They're going to be all over the map. Go into those places, loot the chest. There's usually going to be quite a lot of them in each of these Imperial testing stations. You're going to have to fight through some enemies, but you're going to find these in those stations. There's also going to be the counterpart for this resource, going to be called the particle capacitor. Same thing, also Imperial testing facilities, also going to be found in the chests. Make sure you loot those. Be thorough because they're going to be in most of the chests you're going to find there. And you're also going to need a bit of armor plating, and you can find armor plating in a lot of places. It's pretty much found mostly in the big enemies, the ones that are holding miniguns or flamethrowers or whatever, or it's also found in some chests as well. Just make sure whenever you kill the big guys with the miniguns or the flamethrowers, make sure you loot them because they're going to hold armor plating, pretty much all of them. You can get quite a lot by just making sure you loot them whenever you defeat them. Now, when it comes to the buggy, you're going to have to build the entire buggy itself, and then you're going to have to make sure when it comes to the rear side, make sure you're building the buggy utility rear. Now, the reason why you need the buggy utility rear is because that's going to allow you to put a utility unit on it, which is very important for the storage unit. You could put a buggy rear, but that's not going to allow you to put the storage unit on, and that's very important because you want this vehicle for farming, and to have a storage unit means you can hold more items, and that is obviously going to be crucial. So make sure you use the buggy utility rear, and you pretty much want to make sure all these pieces of gear are the Mark III variant, because if you're going for the Mark IV variant, it's going to be much more expensive, and the whole point of this vehicle is to get the resources to build the Ornithopter, because the Ornithopter is going to be very important. Once you build that, as mentioned, you're going to want to build the buggy storage capacity Mark III, and then you want to build the cut array. Now, the first one you're going to build is probably going to be the Mark III because it's cheaper, but you're really going to want to get the Mark IV whenever possible. This one's going to be pretty much the same requirements, but you're going to need aluminium ingot as well as ray amplifiers. Ray amplifiers, that's a new one you're going to have to find. That one is is going to be found also in the same trench where you're going to find the crystals, the pink crystals. You can find this also in some of those facilities in the chest there. So be on the lookout for those. Aluminium, you're going to need this resource also a lot for the helicopter, and that's going to be the next major resource we're going to want to get. Once you've ended up building your dune buggy, what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to use the dune buggy to mine these resources, and because there's a big storage capacity, you can put the resources on it instead of making multiple trips going up and down a million times, which is also dangerous because you might end up dying to a sandworm by doing this. You're going to be able to go in one big run, get a whole bunch of resources, return to base, and this is going to make your life a lot more efficient, and it's going to make building the helicopter a lot easier. Now, moving on to the Ornithopter. This is what you really want to build as quickly as possible because the Ornithopter is going to be crucial. Now, the Ornithopter is going to take quite a bit of resources to make, so buckle up. I'm going to explain to you how you can get all these resources, the most efficient way to do so, and the best way to build the Ornithopter as early as possible. Now, assuming you already have the dune buggy, the first thing you're going to want to get is lots and lots of aluminium ore. Now, the way you can find aluminium ore is you're going to want to end up traveling all the way up to the northwest side of the map. This is going to be Eastern Shield Wall as well as Western Shield Wall. You can find it pretty much all along the top of this map. The best way I like to do it is it's going to be like this kind of path where you can drive up. It's going to be kind of like a mouth shape, the Mesa Terril. There's going to be a little zone there where you can drive into, and then I like to do a loop in this area. You can get easily like 2,000 aluminium with one loop of the dune buggy. It is a lot easier if you do have the cut array Mark IV for the dune buggy because you'll get much better yield from the aluminium rather than your cut array. But obviously, you first have to get a little bit of aluminium before you can do this. So for a while, you'll have to use the cut array to do so. Now, going through this place, it should be pretty easy. The aluminium ore is going to be pretty much everywhere. Mine as much of it as you can, and then take it back to your base and turn it into the ingots. For the cobalt paste, you can find it in the chasm by Hagar Rift. That is going to be those pink crystals, which we discussed a little bit earlier on. There's also going to be the advanced servox. Again, you can find those in the Imperial testing facilities. And there's also going to be diamond dust. Now, diamond dust is going to be a new resource. This one's going to be tricky to get. Luckily, we don't need that much diamond dust, but it is going to be required for this. Now, the way this is going to work is there's going to be an area here by the Mesa Terril. There's going to be like this big coliseum. You're going to see a dead sandworm that's electrified, kind of like a cult that's going to be there. Now, there's two ways you can go about doing this. You can go for a clean sweep where you take down all the enemies, clear them out, then gather the diamond dust. It's going to be found in the chests in this like enemy camp. There's going to be a lot of enemies here. They're fairly medium to high-ish level enemies. At least in the early game, they might be a bit difficult. So if you're really early on, you can bypass this by just running straight past enemies, going to the chest. You can kind of go around and then go to the center mass. You're going to need to have a decent shield here because they're obviously going to be shooting at you. So it can be a little bit tricky. You can fight them. They're not that difficult to fight, but it's going to take a little bit of time because obviously they are going to be slightly on the higher level side. Obviously, if you have much better gear, this wouldn't be that difficult, but depending on how early on in the game, this could be tricky. So if you want to figure out how to get those chests, basically right at the center altar, there's going to be two chests here. That's going to have the diamond dust. There's also going to be diamond dust. If you go down to the left and back side, you're going to find diamond dust. And if you go inside the main hall of this place, there is going to be a bunch of enemies here. If you run past them, there will also be this kind of metal door. You can use a cut array, a basic one even, cut it open, get the key card, go to the opposite side. There's going to be a bunch of chests in there, a lot of diamond dust in there as well. There's also going to be diamond dust in some of the outskirts of this camp. There's going to be like other smaller camps, but then you're going to have to kind of travel back and forth and it can be a little bit annoying. So this is just the most efficient way. Once you end up getting the diamond dust, go back to base. They will respawn again, I believe, in like 45 minutes. So if you didn't get enough diamond dust, it's kind of random. Sometimes you'll get maybe 50 diamond dust is my highest. Sometimes you'll only get like 10 to 16. So on average, you'll probably get like 30-ish diamond dust. You'll probably need to do this 2 or 3 times in total in order to get enough diamond dust for the helicopter because a lot of pieces of the helicopter are going to require diamond dust. So you're going to have to farm them a couple of times. Then you're also going to need armor plating. Once again, armor plating you can find by defeating the heavier enemies, typically the ones you see with miniguns. Just make sure you're always looting them for the armor plating. It's a quite important resource when it comes to crafting in this game. Now, another item you're going to need is carbide scraps. Now, carbide scraps, pretty much the same thing as diamond dust. It's found in the same places. So when you do end up looting for diamond dust, you will pick up carbide scraps while you're there. So don't worry about carbide scraps. When you do end up looting the diamond dust, you'll pick this up as well, also in those chests. Now, a new resource which you're going to be looking out for is going to be complex machinery. Now, complex machinery is going to be a little bit of a tricky one to find. You can typically find complex machineries when you're going into Imperial testing facilities. You'll see them having their own fabricators or ore refinery systems, go to those machines and they will typically have complex machinery in them. Also, if you go to big enemy outposts or camps, they might have a machine or two in them and you can loot those to get the complex machinery. It can sometimes also just be in chests. It's not going to be super consistent where you find it. You're also going to be able to find in Western Vermilius Gap, you will see there will be these 2 locations that are going to have complex machinery showing as icons. So if you look at maps, you see little locations will tell you what resources you will find. There are some locations in Vermilius Gap, even though are going to have it. So it's not that difficult of a resource to find. As long as you're actively looting, you should come across this naturally. Once again, if you do want to find this, the Northern West Vermilius Gap will have these resources as well. So just take a look at those 2 locations. They're right next to each other. You can get some complex machinery there. And then the last one, which is going to be a bit of a trickier one, this is going to be Industrial Pump. Now, the Industrial Pump is going to be a fairly difficult resource to get. There's not that many places that are going to have it. One of the easiest places to get it is going to be at Sentinel City. This you can find in the Eastern Shield Wall. It's going to be a heavily fortified enemy location. There's going to be fairly high level enemies here. So once again, if you're not high level, what you can do is just run in, ignore all the enemies, put a shield on, and then try open up as many chests as you can. There's typically going to be quite a bit of industrial pumps here. You can typically find like 20 plus quite easily on this run. But again, you're going to be shot at by a lot of enemies, so be prepared for that. But you can just run past them and get this on the way in. Now, when it comes to using a module on the Ornithopter, the one that I like to make use of is going to be the storage capacity. You can put other things. There are going to be opportunities for you to put rocket launchers on this thing. You can also put on thrusters. I like the storage because with the storage, it means you can use it as a farming vehicle, and it's going to be quite important because you're going to use this for farming quite a lot. This is going to make farming and everything in the game so much easier. So the storage unit is the one that I like to use the most. You can build multiple of these modules and kind of mix them up depending on what your use case is going to be. Maybe you want to farm, maybe you want to explore, maybe you want to do it for PvP. You can switch it up whenever you like, so it's not a big problem. I like to use the storage capacity, at least on the Scout Ornithopter, which is going to be the first one you build. Now, it's also important to note you're going to need 4 wings for this, so make sure you build 4 of them, and you're going to get the single best item in the entire game, and that is going to be the Ornithopter. Now, when you get the Ornithopter, it is going to be a little bit tricky to get used to. At first, it is going to be holding the space bar or your jump button. That is going to take you up. Very simple. If you move forward, you will end up obviously slowly going forward and backwards and whatever. And then if you end up pressing shift or your sprint key, whatever it is, this is going to allow you to kind of turn off the engines and go into glide mode. Now, glide mode is going to be the way that you're going to be able to move the fastest. This is going to also reduce your fuel consumption while you're in glide mode, and this is going to allow you to kind of gain height in the helicopter mode. And then once you've gained enough height, you switch on over to glide mode, and you're going to be able to glide around the map very, very easily with this. It's also got a very leniency when it comes to crashes. I've crashed this thing pretty damn bad, and it doesn't really break, so don't feel too scared with it. It's not made of glass. Even if your wings hit a rock or whatever, it's not going to blow up the helicopter, so don't worry about it. However, again, do be careful, because if you leave this in the sand or whatever, sandworms can still get to it. So just, you know, be careful when you're flying it. Be careful where you park it. It's also very valuable to note that the regular Scout Ornithopter is actually able to be stored in your gun or in your vehicle storage unit, and this is going to make it very, very useful, because you can just, whenever you want, pop it out, pack it back up, so you can keep it safe away from sandstorms or anything else for that matter. However, the assault helicopter, that cannot be stored, so just keep that one in mind as well. Your storage capacity must be empty when doing this, however, otherwise it won't be able to get stored. Anyway, that is the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you learned something, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know in the comment section below, what is your favorite vehicle to use in Dune Awakening? I would love to find out, and I'll see you guys again next time. Take care, everyone, and bye-bye.